Hi, class. It's Dr. Lindner. We are still on tissues, and in a previous video, we talked about epithelial tissue. We also spoke about connective tissue and all the different subcategories, being a connective tissue proper and fluid connective tissue and supporting connective tissue. Now we're going to be looking at muscle tissue. A lot easier because we only have three categories. We have skeletal, cardiac, and smooth. Can you guess where skeletal muscle will attach? Skeletal muscle will attach to the skeleton. Can you guess where cardiac muscle is associated with? That's right, cardiac muscle is associated with the heart. The third type is called smooth muscle. Smooth muscle, I think of your organs. I think of the gastrointestinal tract. I think of your blood vessels, the intestine, small intestine, large intestine, all that smooth. Okay. Of the three, skeletal muscle is the only one that's voluntary, meaning it's the only one that you have conscious control over. Cardiac and smooth, you do not. Now, let me go back here again. I also want to tell you that these two, skeletal and cardiac, are referred to as striated because when you look at them, you're going to see lines. They look striated. Because you don't see these striations here, it's called smooth. Smooth. So here are the striations with skeletal muscle. Here are the striations of cardiac muscle. So they both have striations. Skeletal muscle is long, cylindrical, multinucleated cells, and they have these obvious striations. It's voluntary, right? This is the muscle that attaches to your skeleton. Back here are the triceps. Up here would be the biceps. So you can consciously bend your elbow, you can straighten your elbow. Any muscle that attaches to your skeleton is skeletal muscle. Skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle, they all have lots of mitochondria as well because they have to produce energy. It takes energy for muscles to function. But notice under the microscope, notice skeletal muscle, notice how tightly parallel all these fibers are, and let's compare that to cardiac. If I go back and forth, you can see the striations, but what's different is that here in cardiac, that first word, it's branched. You can see the branches, like the branches of a tree. They're usually uninucleated. They're not multi like skeletal, they're uninucleated. And another important feature that we see are these things that I'm drawing these circles around. These are called intercalated discs. These are specialized junctions. These intercalated discs, if we were to separate them and pull this cell and this cell apart, right between the two, there would be gap junctions. And gap junctions are used for fast, rapid forms of communication. And we need fast, rapid forms of communication when it comes to the heart because the heart has this electrical conduction system where we have the pacemaker that sits right here. We call that the SA node, and it's going to send the electrical current here to the AV node. and then it's going to send its current right down to the bottom where it will branch to the ventricles to make the ventricles contract. But what's unique about this, you'll learn this in A&P 2, but what's unique is that both upper chambers, the atria, have to contract in harmony, and then both ventricles have to contract in harmony. So how do the right and left atrium and the right and left ventricle communicate with one another in harmony so that they contract at the same time? It's due to these intercalated discs and the gap junctions that allow the electrical conduction to rapidly send all this information to both upper chambers at the exact same time so that they function in sync, in harmony. The heart is actually, and the heart muscle is called a functional syncytium. Synctium or syncytium, meaning it functions in sync. Intercalated discs, gap junctions, branched, striated. You don't see intercalated discs here in skeletal muscle. Striated, but cardiac is involuntary. You don't have conscious control like you do your skeletal muscle. You can consciously move your arm on command, but you can't make your heart beat 90 beats per minute if it's doing 70 beats per minute right now. Okay? Involuntary. Smooth muscle, I think of all the organs in the GI tract, the esophagus, the stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and I think of blood vessels. Smooth muscle. Notice they're spindle shaped. They look smooth, no striations. Each of them have a central nuclei, and the cells are arranged in these very closely tight formed sheets. And it's the smooth muscle that's around your intestine that helps to propel and move all the objects or the food stuff from the esophagus in the stomach into the intestine into the colon. Okay? It's the smooth muscle that we have around blood vessels that make your blood vessels constrict or dilate. When a blood vessel constricts, blood pressure goes up. When a blood vessel dilates, so let's say this is the constriction, the lumen gets smaller, and here's one where the lumen gets bigger. When it constricts, the blood pressure goes up. When the blood vessel dilates, you get decreased blood pressure. And all around the lumen is smooth muscle. And that's what's going to constrict or dilate the lumen of the blood vessel to increase or decrease blood pressure. Okay, when we come back, we'll get into the last type, which is nerve tissue.